Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Edward with the Gwinnett NAACP, First Vice President, Political Action Committee Chair, and with me is my guest host is our great leader and President, President Poole. We want to thank you all for joining us this evening for our Meet the Candidate Forum featuring the state judge position here in Gwinnett County. Now, we have some great guests that we want to bring on, but before we do, I want to cover some quick election dates. So, May 2nd is the start of early in person voting. And also, if you do plan on voting by absentee ballot, please make sure because of Senate Bill 202, you will have to submit a copy of your either driver's license or state ID with your absentee ballot application and also with the actual absentee ballot if you want that ballot to be counted. And then on election day will be May 24th. And you can check your voter registration status at www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. And finally, thank you all for watching because we've had some record viewerships. There's been 4 times the number of people that normally watch our program. So we thank you all for the views. Please continue to share, like, follow, subscribe us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Please follow what we do, share what we do, because we need more and more people that look like us in these rooms and spaces, getting this education, getting introduction to these candidates and trying to make great decisions when they go to the polls. I'll turn it over to our president for more words, and I'll let her speak now.
Good afternoon, our beloved community. This is Penny Poole with the Gwinnett NAACP. We are happy to have you with us today. We're going to jump right in because we do not want to delay, but we want to have some housekeeping rules. We want to make sure that during this event, this program, that everyone is speaking politely, everyone is being mannerable, and that we are all honoring each other as human beings. And we say this because even though you may not be heard, we are also asking for that same respect from our audience. We had some trolling in our last event, and we want to make sure that this is not tolerated because this is a safe space where we are respecting each other. So if you have questions, we're happy to ask questions, but we would, again, ask from any refrain of being negative in this broadcast. And as far as that, we want to, we are a nonpartisan organization, and we are here to hear each voice, giving them their opportunity to speak to you, even ask questions. So get your questions ready for our judicial candidates. Again, beloved community, we hope you are safe. We hope you are doing well, you're flourishing, and thank you for sharing this time with us today. Edward, if you'd like to introduce the candidates. We cannot hear you. Edward?
All right. Yeah, I'll bring each guest in one by one. Once everybody's in the room, I'll let them introduce themselves. So our first guest we have is Matt Miller, candidate for state judge in Gwinnett County. And then we'll also bring in Elaine Nietmann, candidate for state judge in Gwinnett County, and Erica Dove, candidate for state judge here in Gwinnett County. So I'll let each, we'll start with Matt. I brought you in first, and then Elaine, then Erica. I'll let y'all do a brief introduction of yourselves before we get started into the questions.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. First off, I want to thank President Poole, Mr. Paul, and Ms. Johnson for putting on this forum and everybody in the Gwinnett NAACP. My name is Matt Miller. I'm currently running for Gwinnett State Court Judge Division 5. I reside in Lawrenceville, Georgia with my wife and 3 children. My wife is a school teacher here in the Gwinnett County Public Schools. I am currently employed with the Gwinnett Solicitor's Office, where I am a supervising attorney and I prosecute the vehicular homicides in the 2nd degree in Gwinnett County. Prior to working in the solicitor's office with Mr. Brian Whiteside. I was in private practice for about 13 years on my own, where I was doing criminal defense as well as doing civil plaintiffs work, personal injury work. With all of the types of cases that I've handled in both private practice and in the solicitor's office, I feel like I am a very highly qualified candidate for the position of state court judge. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you. And Elaine, you go next, and then Erica.
Hello, my name is Elaine Nietmann. I have been a resident of Gwinnett County for the past 10 years. I am an attorney here. I am a civil and criminal attorney. I have been a public defender for the last 8 years for the state of Georgia. It's a conflict public defender. So if there's gang-related activities involving more than one defendant, I am appointed as a volunteer for the state. I also take on private cases. I do family law, and I take private civil cases of all sorts, whether it's lawsuits with businesses or individuals amongst themselves. I am married for 13 years. I have 4 children. One of them has special needs. He is diagnosed with autism. So there's a lot that goes with that territory. I love Gwinnett. I am emotionally, mentally, physically attached to this county. This is where I raise my kids. This is where I plan to stay. So I really care truly, and I have the most character for this position because of my compassion for the position. And I just look forward to answering your questions and getting to know you guys. Oh, and lastly, I'm also an immigrant. I was raised in Ghana, West Africa. I moved here when I was 9 years old. Thank you.
All right, go ahead, Erica. You next.
Okay, I'm Erica Dove. I am a candidate for the Gwinnett State Court Judge, Division 5. A little about me. I moved to Georgia in 1980 and have been a Gwinnett County resident since 1981. I attended both elementary, middle, and high schools in Gwinnett County. I am a graduate of Howard University. I've been practicing for 20 years. Originally, my career began at King & Spalding. That's a big corporate firm. I was a prosecutor in the solicitor's office for 10 years, where I helped create the mental health diversion program. I participated in the DUI court program, and I did most every job they have in that office. And then I went into private practice in 2015, where I do mostly criminal defense, some family, and some other civil matters, Social Security I used to do. I've done veterans, disabilities, those kind of things. And I also sit as a municipal court judge, a part-time judge in the cities of Lilburn and the city of Chamblee, and I also serve as part of the Veterans Court team, and I've been since the creation of the Veterans Court with the state court.
Thank you all for that. Thank you all for the introduction. A lot of great resumes I'm hearing based on that. All right, so Elaine, we'll start with you. Can you tell our audience what jurisdiction does this particular judge position cover? So we had an actual civic education form. We went through all these different judges, magistrate, probate, superior court. So what cases would this particular judge preside over?
Well, this court hears both civil and criminal. For criminal, hears only misdemeanor cases. These are cases that you face up to 12 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. For civil, can hear cases of any amount of money. It just doesn't hear divorce cases. So it could be personal injury, car accident cases. It could be lawsuits amongst individuals. It could be a lawsuit against a business, so forth and so on. So as far as jurisdiction, it's Gwinnett County. So anybody that's a resident of Gwinnett County, a business that's a resident of Gwinnett County, an incident that took place in Gwinnett County would be heard in this court.
Thank you for that. And then I'm gonna go around the room this time. Erica, I'll start with you, and then I'm gonna kind of go around.
Okay.
Why should Black people, or anyone for that matter, care about, who wins in this particular election? So why should, we care about who represents us on the court in this particular election?
Okay, so you want someone that is compassionate, somebody who has integrity, somebody who is going to be fair and impartial. You want somebody with well-rounded experience and has dealt with people on all sides of whatever kind of case it is. And you want somebody that's tried and true, that they know how to interact with people, whether it's judges, it's other attorneys, whether it's civilians, whether it's police officers, whoever it is, they need to be compassionate and listen. You need somebody that has the patience to listen all the way through, and shows their professional experience with people. And I've done that. As a defense attorney in private practice, I've worked on the indigent defense list. So I've done hundreds and hundreds of matters just on the indigent defense list alone, let alone my personal matters. As a prosecutor, I was there for 10 years, trial division, recorder's court, the jail court, treatment court. So I've interacted with everybody on all sides of everything. And I think that's what you're looking for. You want somebody that cares about the community. You want somebody that's involved in the treatment courts, that knows what the issues are. Like the mental health diversion was a thing that I helped create when I was a prosecutor. That's a big thing in our community that people really need to pay attention to. It's a growing problem. Resources are limited, but you need somebody that cares about all that stuff, the veterans and how they're treated in the system, and what you can do to try to help move them along and make them productive people in the society, even with all the trauma that they've experienced. You just want somebody with well-rounded experience involving all of that.
Okay, Elaine, same question to you. Why should we care?
Well, you should care because one of the biggest issues facing the Black community right now is mass incarceration. Mass incarceration is something I know is near and dear to our heart that we want to decrease. In order to do that, you need to have people that are passionate about making sure that we do decrease it. This court is actually, because of the kind of charges you receive, it's an intervention court. So let's say it's a misdemeanor, right? Not everybody starts off as a felon. So this is the time for that intervention. If somebody steals something, the judge needs to be able to have the patience and compassion to assess the person and make sure that they're not en route to becoming a felon. They hear something called domestic violence cases. So if there's a domestic violence case amongst individuals, this judge has to be able to make sure that the consequence is appropriate. If it's anger management that needs to be done, that intervention needs to take place. Make sure that the individuals are separated. That's the kind of involvement that this judge has to have to make sure that there's not a murder down the line. Same with DUIs. These cases come before the court. You don't want somebody driving out there ready to kill somebody the next time. Their first DUI, that judge has got to intervene and make sure that it doesn't happen again. So one of the things that we're lacking right now in Gwinnett County is a mental health court. Yes, we have a mental health diversion program, but we don't have a mental health court. We need a court that is going to train our cops, our police. Sorry, I know people don't like the word cops. Our police, our attorneys, make sure they know how to deal with these people. I have a child with special needs, and I worry every day about his encounter with police. Every day. I want to make sure that what's happening in our courts is going to take care of him and make sure that, hey, he doesn't accidentally get arrested, or a policeman in an exchange doesn't accidentally end up hurting him in any way. So that's why I'm compassionate about this position. And I want to make sure that when I get in there, Black people, all types of people, I'm impartial, but I know what's dear and dear in our hearts is mass incarceration. Make sure our treatment programs are working for us. Make sure that Veterans Court is working for us, and make sure that the system is doing what it's supposed to do. And we have full faith and confidence when we go in front of that court that the right things are going to be done, the right consequences are going to take place. Thank you.
Okay, and Matt, last but not least.
Yeah.
We care.
So with all elections, everybody should care about who they're voting for and have a firm understanding of the person that they're voting for, their character, and what they stand for. It's hard in these judicial races to distinguish candidates because everybody generally says the same thing. I will be fair. I will be impartial. I will follow the law. That's a big thing that you're looking for in a judge, and something that I don't think the other two candidates have mentioned yet, but I know that they would both also follow the law. But sadly, far too often, I have seen judges that just go off and do their own thing without actually following the law. We are there to be the judicial branch. That is our job, to interpret the laws and to follow them. We are not there to legislate from the bench. We are there to make sure that the law is being followed properly. That's why we elect the legislators themselves. So that's why people should care about these positions and care about who they're voting for in terms of these judicial positions in particular. And the judicial positions, I don't believe it's been mentioned yet, are nonpartisan positions that appear on every ballot. They're at the very bottom of the ballot. And so there's a lot of different candidates and a lot of qualified candidates that are out there running, not just for this position, but for all of them. And everybody needs to educate themselves as to who these candidates are and what they stand for.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. So next round of room question. I don't see any questions in the chat. So if y'all watching live, please drop your questions in the chat. You know, I definitely want to get our questions in from members. We got over 150 plus members, but we want to take some questions from you all that's tuning in as well. So please drop your questions in the chat. And President Poole, if you want to,
yes,
go ahead.
That particular question, I just wanted to piggyback off of it for a little bit. We ask, why do you care? We're asking, why do you care? Because of implicit bias. So we're talking about implicit bias because we know that the data in our country shows that African Americans and Black people are incarcerated at a higher rate than others. So we know just from our background, our history, where we come from, that all of us have some sense of implicit bias. Because of this, how would you help deter those who have who come before the courts, may not have the attorney that is the brightest bulb in the courtroom, or what type of restorative justice would you try to do in your court, since you have such a wide range dealing with family and misdemeanor criminal offenses? Can we start with Attorney Miller on this?
Yes, of course. So it's hard to say how I would handle a certain case, and we as candidates are not allowed to prejudge cases. So in terms of answering how you would handle a certain particular individual that appears, a attorney that appears before them, you really can't prejudge a case. So
well, let me interrupt you a minute, because I don't think I communicated clearly with you. Because what I'm getting at, I'm not asking you to prejudge, but what I'm asking about is deterrence, about special programs, because someone else previously talked about that there were we needed courts that dealt with the mind as well as the body. So it's those type deterrents. How would you, and what types of deterrents would you have, and then helping to get our communities suitable restorative justice? So we're not asking you to prejudge, but we're asking, what things would you do?
Well, let me speak from experience here. Before being in the solicitor's office, I was a private defense attorney, and I handled all types of cases with criminal. In terms of criminal defense, I did felonies and I did misdemeanors. When I was in private practice and I was working for myself, Gwinnett County did have a very negative bond system in place. And it was something that I always concerned me, because what would end up happening is you would get people that would be arrested, even on misdemeanor cases, and they would go into custody in Gwinnett County, and they would get bonds that would be set at $5,000, $7,500, $10,000 on sometimes just very minor misdemeanor cases, such as theft by shopliftings and any sort of misdemeanor. It was a very regressive system, and it was a system that was in place for years and years. When the pandemic broke out, I saw an opportunity to address this issue and to bring it to the attention of the uh, magistrate court, as well as Mr. Brian Whiteside, my boss. So what I ended up coming up with was a process in which a solicitor, and generally it was myself, would go to the jail for first appearance hearings and look at a person's criminal history and what they were charged with. If they were charged with a minor charge, we would set what is called an OR bond, or a signature bond, so they don't have to actually post a bond to get out of jail. Like I said, for years and years in Gwinnett, there was this regressive system in which there was what a lot of people would refer to as Bennett bonds, and there was a Judge Bennett, that was on the bench for years, and he would set these really high bonds. And what would end up happening is individuals would be locked up, and they would end up taking pleas on these cases that they should have never taken a plea on, just to get out of jail. It was regressive, and it would punish people. So thinking outside of the box and coming up with a system in which we can get people out of jail so they can adequately fight their charges was something that I came up with and thought outside of the box, and what can actually try to help people pursue the justice that they deserve.
Thank you for that. And can we next go to Attorney Dove, please? Or Judge Dove, because you are currently on the seat, correct?
I'm a municipal court judge. Yes.
Yes, Judge Dove. Thank you.
Okay. So it's kind of hard to say what a judge will do for a person that has already entered the system. As prosecutors, you can do diversion programs and you can do bond things. But as a judge, it's kind of, you don't know about the case until it's presented before you. I would say that the treatment court programs are a good avenue for when people are attempting to enter a plea, or there's motions before you that maybe you can, see that maybe this is a little different than your regular shoplifting. Like, this is a troubled youth that needs to enter a program and try to help them with their future. Or this is somebody with a diagnosed or, a mental health condition that might have been in crisis at the time. And maybe you need to guide them towards some kind of mental health program or treatment or that kind of thing. But as a judge, you kind of don't get it until it's already in the system. As humans, as a part of an active part of the community, I'm a part of several mentor programs that you try to guide young people or women in prison or whatever the program, whoever the situation is. You try to inform them about the system and educate them and try to get them guidance to whether it's homelessness or education or whatever the problem, or mental health resources. But as a judge, kind of the only thing you can do after they've entered the system is kind of make either sentencing, try to address the underlying issue, or accountability courts where you actually spend time in treatment, where they've got to get the appropriate counseling, they've got to do the community service, they've got to check in with the court more often. And that way you try to address the underlying issue before it becomes a bigger problem. But again, as a judge, you kind of don't see it until after it's happened, because it's all on the prosecutor on how they treat people before it gets to court. Because it could be somebody's charged with something and the prosecutor decides to dismiss the case altogether. So you never see it.
Okay, and let me clarify one more time, because when we know that the parameters of sitting on the court is one thing, but we are talking about after this person has been adjudicated, after all of the information has been presented, we're talking about the trial has happened. Even after those things, we find, because I use the word implicit bias, I use the word deterrence, so that because we know that once a person is in the system, that prison pipeline, they may never get out of it. So we're talking about what a judge has available to them. And we'll move to our next candidate. So again, we're not trying to say you are going to be the district attorney and bringing charges. No, the hard part, the judge is the one that are sentencing our boys, our young ladies, much more harsh than whites have incurred, than other people of color have incurred. Our population is the majority. So all this is saying that we are getting sentenced harsher. Is that a little clear for you, the two who already answered it? Because I wanted to make sure we know. And if Judge Nietmann, if you would answer, please. Thank you.
Okay. Correction. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure I'm not
very
on mute.
Clearly. Very clearly.
Okay. So I actually spoke about this question with the sitting judge that's going out. This is an open seat that we're all running for. Her name is Judge South. And she let me know that mental health is at an all-time low. Homelessness is high. So she is very compassionate. And what she does is she has status hearings. She makes sure that if somebody's going through a treatment program, she'll have a status hearing every 3 months. And she encourages them to complete the program. Those words of encouragement, they go a long way. They make sure that the person is being held accountable, that they're doing what they need to do in the program, and so forth and so on. And you mentioned attorneys. Sometimes you said that sometimes some attorneys are not the best, or so forth and so on. Well, these judges, they appoint the attorneys. So getting to know the court-appointed attorneys is very critical. I was on the court-appointed list. I think all three of us were at one point. I was on it for 2 years as a public defender, and you get to know the judges and the judges get to know you. So a judge can appoint an attorney that they feel like, okay, this person is probably more suitable to take care of this case, to make sure that everything is done right. So yes, the judges get to appoint the attorneys and they get to have status hearings. And if there's something that's really wrong, a pretrial hearing is always something that a judge can do. Have a pretrial, ask what's going on here. It looks like things are not working out, or you don't have your things together as an attorney. You're not representing your client right. What is going on? We need to have a pretrial hearing, make sure that this person's being taken care of like they're supposed to be. So the judge can also do that as well. So basically, in addition to that, also, people tell me a lot I'm approachable, okay? People tell me they can discuss anything with me. People open up to me within the first few minutes. It's critical to have that kind of character. It may seem like I'm being nice and polite and everything, but getting somebody to open up to you is big, because they confess, they end up telling the truth more, they end up being honest, a lot more come out. So a lot of these cases that come before this court, they're getting pled out. There's a plea bargain that's coming before the court. So it's not necessarily every case that's getting tried. Some of them, they're coming, they're saying, hey, I did it. Give me my punishment. So it's up to this judge to make sure that the punishment actually fits the crime. So that punishment, the consequence that they get, it has to make sure that the person doesn't re-enter the system. Making sure that if they have a mental health problem, they get a mental health evaluation and they follow through with the treatment. They say that the statistics are 87% of people with a mental health illness, they get back in the system as soon as they get out. So recidivism is something that's very, very big that we need to work on in our county. And I am passionate about making sure that we decrease recidivism. I'm probably the only one that has a flyer with recidivism on it. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Because what I was getting at was that compassion. What the tools that judge has. And it seems like Black people have not been getting compassionate sentences. As a matter of fact, and I know I keep going down this rabbit hole, you mentioned that Gwinnett County has court-appointed attorneys. Well, all of the other 159 counties in Gwinnett County have public defender's office. So this even takes it out of the hand of the judges. Since Gwinnett County does not have a public defender's office, this our people, or the people who are in front of these judges, here is the opportunity for more implicit bias to be put in there. So I want everybody to understand that in Gwinnett County, we have court-appointed attorneys that the judges select who defends whom. And again, his more personal biases that get added to that. Whereas in the other 153 counties in the state of Georgia, there are public defender offices. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Edward, I'm going to let you do the next question.
Well, we got a question from someone in the chat. Nadia Sorensen says, how will you come into the role and make an impact? So we'll, Elaine, I'm going to take you out. I'll let Matt, you can start with that question.
Well, again, once you end up into the role of a judge, I think a judge needs to be open-minded and willing to listen to the individuals that come before them. As has been stated here by, I think, all the candidates, listening and being empathetic to the individuals, be it a defendant, a plaintiff, somebody charged in a criminal matter, and listen to their needs as well as the needs of a victim, to make sure that all of the issues are being addressed properly. That is how a judge can make their biggest impact. As has been brought up here, Judge South is big on using status hearings, and those are things that will continue to move forward with this division, no matter who is elected, because there have been status hearings that have been scheduled out already into the 2023. And keeping up with the person that is under sentence, and that they are completing their sentence and that you are being compassionate and listening to their needs is a huge way that the judge has an impact on the lives of individuals that appear before them.
All right, thank you. And then Judge Dove, won't you take a round of that, answering that question for us?
Okay, coming into the situation, obviously I have some experience. So I've heard some trials, I've heard some arraignments and that kind of thing. But I think that what you have to do is pay attention to what actually happened and try to figure out where the needs are. So if there are things to be addressed, because sometimes there's a domestic case and the issue might be that there's drug and alcohol abuse going on. Or it may be that somebody has a mental health diagnosis that they're not taking their medication for. Or, it could be any plethora of things. Or there's a relationship, mother and daughter who is strained, and maybe they need some counseling or something like that. I think it's important to pay attention to what's actually going on to try to address the issues to keep people out of the system. I think it's important to try to address the underlying issue which caused them to be in the court system. And that's kind of the best you can do. Sometimes it's just returning to the community what you felt like they took away from it, like a shoplifting case. Like community service might be important. Give back to the community when you have taken from somebody else, and some classes that tell you what happened, explain to you what that does to society once you take things. Or it could just be any plethora of things that can happen and be underlying. And if you can determine, because I know sometimes you can't really figure it out, or you have to do the best you can with the circumstances, try to make sure that the underlying issues are actually addressed. If counseling is appropriate, if anger management is appropriate, if mental health counseling is appropriate, if AAs or drug and alcohol treatment is appropriate, if NA is appropriate, or if it's being connected to VA services, the best thing you can do is connect people. If it's education, it may be, okay, well, you need to go get a GED to help you move along in your career, and maybe that'll help you get past this. I think it's important to try to address the underlying issue if you can, just to keep people out of the system any further. Misdemeanors are kind of a gateway to felonies in some cases, but sometimes it's enough to keep people out of the system. They don't ever want to be in that court again. So it deters people from going further. Some people just they don't want to come in the courthouse for nothing. And if they've had that experience, that's a negative experience that they don't want to have again. But you got to treat people with respect and try to address the underlying issues.
Thank you for that. And Attorney Nietmann, you could take your.
Did you repeat the question?
It's still on the screen. How will you come into the role and make an impact?
Well, I have a lot of passion. I'm an advocate. As I mentioned before, my son has special needs. So mental health in general is something that I'm very passionate about. And, speaking to the outgoing judge, she let me know that whoever is coming in has to advocate on the bench and off the bench for mental health, because we lack resources in the state. We lack facilities. We lack employees that are going to address these issues. Some of our mental health treatment programs, they're not even multilingual. They're only English. So if you're in the treatment program, you don't speak English, sorry, it's not going to really work out for you. I'm very passionate about making sure that we have what we need, because even looking at our schools, I'm hearing something like 20% of our students have IEPs. So it's already in our environment. It's in our population. Let's make sure that we have the funding we need. Let's make sure we have our courts are the biggest providers of mental health treatment in the state. That's what our courts are. That's the truth. So let's make sure we have what we need to really truly address this county that is 1 million people now, I think, and going. So I'm very passionate about that. And also, as I mentioned before, I love to converse with people. I love to have them open up to me. And hey, I can walk in a store, I talk to somebody within 5 minutes, they say, put your sign in my window. I'm going for you. Why? Because it's important. If you talk to people and you truly get an understanding of what's going on with their lives, they will let you know what you can do to benefit the community in general. It's not just about them. So I'm ready and willing to listen and help out with the community, because I've been there side by side with those people that I'm defending as a public defender. And I've heard it loud and clear. I've had people go to court with me that said, hey, you know what? I don't have a drug problem, but they've been addicted for 15, 20 years. And it took a judge in front of us to say, hey, how long have you been doing this drugs? And they said, oh, 15, 20 years. Okay, I'm going to put you in our drug treatment program. That's the kind of compassion that we need. So thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. I want to piggyback again off of something that you led in with. You talked about young people coming into the courts. We know that a lot of times, especially with the school to prison pipeline, many of these students are being tried as an adult for various crimes. We talked about once that person is in the system, that more than likely they will be a part of that system for life until new methods are enacted to deter people from crime. What are your positions on trying youth as adults? Because some of them I've seen just from working with advocacy in Gwinnett has been tried at a very early age when they're not even mature, or may not have known to make the right decisions, or may just not knowing the consequences that have happened. So let's see who we need to start with. We're talking about charging youth as adults in the system in Gwinnett at the state court level. Let's start with Attorney Dove, please. We've called you judge. We've called you attorney.
That's all right. I'll take them all.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the thing about juveniles are not handled in state court at all. Unless they are victims, they don't appear in state court. That's more of a superior court thing, because juveniles are either charged as juveniles or they're charged as felonies as an adult in superior court, not misdemeanor court. State court is 17 years or older, so you don't really see that juveniles being charged as adult in state court.
Okay, so you know what? Thank you, because just like I asked that question, it was probably on other people's mind. So we're going to move on.
Okay.
We're going to move on to the next topic, but we hope again, because you did say in state courts you had misdemeanor criminal offenses.
Correct.
So thank you for that.
Mhm.
All right, so moving on, we have Gloria Moore. How will you use restorative justice practices to avoid sending people to jail? And it seems like we're talking about this compassionate judge sitting on the bench today, is what the people want to hear about. If you would start for us, please, Attorney Miller.
Well, in general, when you are dealing with people in misdemeanor courts, almost always they're going to end up on probation. And jail should be a last deterrent that is used when you're dealing with somebody, and should only be based off of their history and whether or not they deserve it given the nature of the crime that they've committed. In Gwinnett, again, we use probation a lot, and we try to make sure that depending upon what the person is charged with, make sure that the punishment fits the crime, and look again at their backgrounds and what underlying issues may be causing the behavior that they are demonstrating and the reason that they are appearing before the court. Addressing those issues, like the drug and alcohol issue, as well as the mental health issues, are what really needs to be done by the judge to make sure that the person is restored and able to be a functioning member of society and contribute to Gwinnett County as a whole.
Okay, thank you for that. And next we'll have Attorney Nietmann, please.
Yes, I think I touched on this before. Some of the things we can do is some of the sentencings that is giving is for the probationary period. If you get probation, you can do community service. Community service is an offer to avoid going to jail if jail is not the right fit for that person, because sometimes just simply sending somebody to jail is not going to do much. I've had clients that have gone to jail because they want to go to jail. They're homeless. They get free food and they like it in jail. Somebody like that is not necessarily a good candidate if the crime they did is so minor and minuscule that that's not where they need to go. Somebody like that, they probably have something else going on that we need to assess. If it's an evaluation that needs to be done, it needs to be prescribed, a mental health evaluation, and get the treatment. You can do community service. You can also do a fine. All these things are good in itself to help to avoid jail if that's not what's needed for that individual.
Okay, thank you. And again, if we can have Judge Dove, please.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the same stuff I pretty much talked about before. The accountability courts and the mental health diversion are going to be, to me, the best ways to kind of avoid just jail time, because what those programs are an alternate sentencing programs. So somebody that's had multiple DUIs, they can spend a year in jail, or they can spend 30 or 60 days in jail, and they are required to get tested 5 times a week. They've got to come to court twice a month. They've got to go to this many AAs per week or per month. They've got to meet with a counselor this many times per month, per week, whatever the situation is. Same thing with Veterans Court. And it usually is in exchange for extended jail time. We're going to require you to address these issues and come to court more often and check in with the judge. Go to your counselor, get connected with the VA and get your services for whatever it is you need. We're going to try to, if you're in Veterans Court, we're going to try to help you get your life back on track. We're going to try to get you connected with however you need to get your leg that's been amputated and you need a leg, or your housing situation is a problem. So we're going to try to get you some resources to get that together and get your life back together. Pretrial diversion, again, it's an avoidance of getting a conviction on your record. If you'll do this counseling and this community service, your case will be dismissed and you don't have a conviction on your record. And maybe you can get a job after this and go to school or go to the military or whatever it is. Those treatment courts, to me, are kind of your best alternate sentencing to jail. I think nobody really wants to see people just sit in jail unless your crime is so egregious that there's no other option. I think the purpose is to address the underlying issues. And if you can put people in accountability courts or some kind of diversion program, then those are going to be your best resources for just avoiding jail time.
Thank you for that. And we're not trying to be redundant today because these things are said so many different ways. And we want to make sure that those who took time out of their day to come and hear what you have to say, these are some of the most important things that we as citizens who feel that we have not received equity, that these questions be answered. So we're going to pivot for a moment before we come back with another question. We're going to pivot to some of the other questions. Okay. According to the Georgia Commission Against Domestic Violence, Violence's 2019 report, women of color are disproportionately impacted by violence. An estimated 29.1% of African American females are victimized by intimate partner violence, rape, physical assault, or stalking in their lifetime. How would you, as a member of the judiciary, work with prosecutors and law enforcement to help victims of domestic violence streamline and accelerate issuance of and strengthen enforcement of temporary protective orders? If we could start with you, Candidate Nietmann.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the first things that is really critical when it comes to domestic violence is getting to know the truth. Sometimes it's the hardest thing. I personally, having females that I've had in my practice that I've represented, a lot of times they don't want to go to court. When they do go to court, they want to just have their case dismissed. They don't want it to go forward anymore. So one of the hardest things to get women to do is to move forward with the process and actually have the testimony and evidence presented to actually make sure that this person stays away from them and doesn't hurt them again. So as a judge, I would make sure that I put in measures in place that will allow that to happen comfortably. So if the person is not comfortable testifying in front of the person face to face, I was looking to seeing if we can do in-camera testimony. I would look into doing other in-camera testimony where the person can actually testify and not feel like, oh, just by testifying, this person can kill me or try to hurt me when I go home. So I would look into that. Just making sure in general that people that come in front of the court can open up and basically move forward with the process so they don't get hurt again. I would also make sure that the people that are coming before our court are getting an evaluation, the appropriate evaluations, to make sure that if there is an underlying issue, that is also addressed. I mentioned before anger management, making sure that if the person that is involved needs anger management, that they go through with the course and they finish and complete it before their case is done. So those are a couple of things that I would make sure that I do for them to make sure that we're keeping our population safe as far as domestic violence.
Thank you. And that was a lot. Do I need to reread the question, or Mr. Attorney Miller, will you be able to answer?
You do not need to reread the question. And I can address this from the position that I'm currently in with the solicitor's office. It is always disheartening to me to have these situations where people get stuck in the cycle of domestic violence. We all see it, especially in the court system, where you'll have a situation in which a victim is with an abuser. The abuser ends up apologizing, and for one reason or another, that victim ends up going back to the abuser. And once it gets to the point where we're in the court system, they've made a decision that they're not going to testify. And it creates a situation that's cyclical, in which this person keeps having the same issues come up, and by the time that it gets to the prosecutor's office, they are already recanting their statements and saying they do not want to go forward. We have made it a priority to make sure that the victims are reached at a early stage and informed of the options that are out there. The Partnership Against Domestic Violence, Mosaic, various groups that are out there that somebody can go to a shelter to get away from their abuser, know how to file a TPO, so that they do not become a statistic, a horrible statistic where they end up dead as the result of the hands of their abuser. So it's got to be early intervention and providing the services and the information to the victims of these cases to make sure that they are not somebody that falls right back into the living situation they had with their abuser.
Okay. And moving to Judge Dove.
I would say that it's a matter of getting them resources early, very early on, similar to what Matt May was saying. You do have to get with victims, you have to make sure that they know what their rights are and get them connected to resources quickly. It's also important for the judiciary to move the cases along so that those cases can be heard kind of in a timely manner, because the delay, if there's delay, that's kind of resources that are by the wayside. That is time for relationships to either get worse or more dangerous if that is the situation that they're in. So I think it's about getting resources early on to people that are classified as victims and trying to get their cases heard in a timely manner so that there's not time for other things to happen. Sometimes time helps because there's time to plan on what your exit is, because there's studies about it being the most dangerous time to exit a relationship once the police have been called and this kind of thing is happening or somebody's tried to leave. But they have to get the resources early. They have to know what their rights are, and their cases have to kind of be heard in a timely manner for it to be effective. Because if the cases are 2 years later, you God only knows what's happened in that time.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. We hear so many horror stories regarding this situation. So there are many things that we need to do to help keep our population and keep everyone safe. Are there any questions in the chat? Okay, we have a question from Gloria Morgan. What's your position on expungement? What crimes should not be expunged in your opinion? And we'll start with Judge Dove.
I think the question, it's debatable about violent crimes. Shoplifting or your first acts, like minor crime that hasn't really affected any victims severely, I think those are okay. I think there's in the expungement or a records restriction statute, there is a youthful offender. If you're under 25 and you haven't reoffended for so many years or committed the same type of offense, I think it's appropriate for youthful offenders who have grown up and moved on and gotten their lives settled and figured out their way. I think it is appropriate to clean up their record so that they can have those opportunities and succeed in life. Because when people don't succeed, that's when the frustration and the crime happens. So I think it is appropriate. The DUIs, I don't think that necessarily those should be restricted unless they're like 30 years old, maybe. But generally, I would say nonviolent offenses for young people or first-time offenders, those are prime for records restriction, if you ask me.
All right. And let's go to Attorney Nietmann.
Well, normally it's the solicitor's office that decides if they do not want to go forward and they want to either dismiss or do a pretrial diversion for the person coming before the accused. So normally, if there's a pretrial diversion, that's the process that it would take to get that expungement, or record restriction is what we call it, for that individual. The judge, for me to say necessarily right now that I would give a certain type of crime that I would not consider to expunge is an implicit bias. You know, you have to look at each case at an individual basis to determine which one you think should be expunged and which one should not be expunged. The person's record, their history, everything about them, the whole case to determine that. So if the solicitor decides not to prosecute the crime and do a pretrial diversion, that would take place. I would be willing to accept it, but it also depends on exactly the history and looking at the whole picture. Thank you.
Okay, and I think too, we were trying to get at the point of expungement of crimes that would be at the state court level. If that's domestic violence, if that's misdemeanor, criminal charges. I think we're looking from that side, Attorney Nietmann. Can you address that also?
Well, there are some crimes that are so heinous, like you mentioned, domestic violence cases, that more than likely it should not be expunged. It should be on the person's record. But at the same time, there's also two sides to every story. So for me to say, okay, every single domestic violence case that comes before me, I will not consider it for expungement. To me, that's a little bit of bias there, because I want to make sure that I hear both sides of the story to realize, okay, is this person, if it turns out that the person was making it up or it was overturned down the line, so forth and so on, before I would make a decision like that.
Okay, and next, Attorney Miller, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so expungements were changed in 2013 when the Records Restriction Act was enacted. The statute is very explicit into what situations a expungement can be conducted and allowed, as well as what cases a records restriction can be granted. I work in the solicitor's office, and for the past couple of years we've been holding records restriction events. I've done them with Patsy Austin Gatson, who is now our district attorney, put them on with her as well as some of the other attorneys in our office. I think the key that needs to be done is when we are holding these events, which we try to advertise, Brian Whiteside, myself, and Miss Austin Gatson, is so that people know that these events are being put on. And what we do is we end up helping them go through the process so that they can apply for the expungement or the records restriction, so that these charges that may be holding them back from being able to get a job can be taken off of their records so that they can get those jobs.
So then let me interrupt. So then that's for misdemeanor offenses, which would just be for
correct.
The criminal cases you have. But overall, what do you think of expungement at the state court level on those other charges, domestic charges, that type thing, for since that is not part of that system now? As you clearly stated, it is for misdemeanor charges as well. And I would like to proudly say that the Gwinnett NAACP has partnered on those expungement efforts in Gwinnett County, along with Solicitor General Brian Whiteside and DA Patsy Austin Gatson. So let's hear from the state court level side, those types of criminal charges, and what you think about expungement in that arena. Because again, this whole conversation has been building up about implicit bias, about mental health, about people getting charged and they were ill, or they may not have needed to be charged with what they have. So I think that's why this question is important, especially across the board. So we've clarified a little bit more. Hope that helps. So what do you think of expungement at the state court level and with the issues that this court deals with?
Again, I think that it is important that people be aware of these opportunities and the application process so that they can apply to get their record expunged or their record sealed. There are other opportunities to help uh, individuals that may have these uh, charges on their background. What we deal with in the solicitor's office a lot is that we will see people that will apply for retroactive use of their first offender, using the Youthful Offender Act to get their record sealed and cleared up so that this doesn't prevent them from moving forward in their lives. I think a lot of this is the key is knowledge and education and educating the community as a whole as to what opportunities are out there to clear up a record so that they are not bootstrapped with being considered a criminal because of something that may have happened when they were 17 or 18. So the individuals need to be aware of it, and the bench could do a better job of saying, hey, this is an opportunity. And it's events like this, which are, people are grateful for that are put on so that you can inform them, hey, there are these opportunities out there to go ahead and get your record restricted or your first offender being retroactively applied and then your record sealed. It's making sure that individuals and people are aware of these opportunities that are out there in the law.
Okay. If there are there any other questions from the chat? We have questions also, but we want to give you the opportunity to ask questions also.
None are in the chat right now.
Okay. So I can read one of the other questions that we have. We'll go ahead with what are 3 most important issues facing Gwinnett's state court bench? What measures would you enact as a member of the judiciary to address them? What are the 3 most important issues? Let's start with you, please, Judge Dove, please.
3 most important issues as far as problems that come before the court or the way the court functions? I just want to make sure
the way the court functions, the state court functions, the court that you would be elected to. What are the most 3 important issues that you think?
Resources is a big one, and that's for like the mental health programs and the mental health issues that come before the court. Very, very often, resources are a problem. Partnerships with agencies that can help in the treatments that you can do, and efficiency in getting the cases through to be heard in a timely manner. I think those are the biggest things. I think that most attorneys, whether you're defense or your prosecutor, you kind of want to get your cases heard in a timely manner. I know that things got slowed down with the pandemic, but I think that that's kind of an important thing that the judges have to pay attention to. Does that answer your question?
Sure. It's what you feel. Taking on this new role, you would be entering into that system, becoming part of it. And we hope that each of you would have goals and objectives to make this state bench run smoothly.
I would say creating great partnerships, making sure that you're aware of what the resources are, and making sure that you move your cases in a timely manner. It's what the 3 most important thing I would say.
Okay, and can we get that from you, Attorney Miller? What do you think are the 3 most important things needing to be done with the state court?
Well, with the state court, obviously resources are key. Getting out there, making sure that there is funding for programs such as starting a mental health court at the misdemeanor level. These things are not free, so you have to get out there and get money in order to get the programs up and running. Also, efficiency with the courts themselves, and the use of technology. as we have seen in this pandemic, we have been slowed down in the court system because of the pandemic. However, moving forward, we have had some opportunities to use technology, and it needs to continue to be used. I have seen situations in which somebody has been charged with a minor offense, and they end up not coming to court because they have moved to out of state, and they have made a decision to, hey, I'm not going to go to court on this criminal trespass or loitering charge or disorderly conduct charge that I have. And the state is willing to offer them something such as a credit time served plea so that they could just close it and be done. However, they need to be able to appear in court. We have the technology now that they don't have to physically be in the building to enter the pleas. As you can see by this forum itself, we are not all in the same place and we are conducting a judicial forum. So we need to be able to use the technology that is at our disposal so that people can be able to take advantage of it. We have a system that is based on the law, but is very archaic in a lot of regards. You have people that have to show up to court for arraignment, for calendar calls, for a lot of different things. And what ends up happening is they end up having to take time off of work. So they're losing out on money in order to appear in court. They need to be provided with the opportunities to take advantage of, doing an announcement for a calendar call via email, like some of the judges do. They have to be provided with the opportunity that they can, as an individual, come in on their own free time and plead not guilty by waiving the arraignment without them having to show up to court and, having to find a babysitter or having to miss time for work. So we need to be able to make the system work efficiently for not just the bench itself, but for the people, because this is an elected position and these positions are for the people.
Thank you for that. And Attorney Nietmann, if you would please answer that.
Well, I list a few on my flyer, and I'll share that with you. Impartial and respectful treatment for all to decrease crime. When we decrease crime, our property value goes up, our neighborhood is healthier, we're safer, and is a great community overall. Our school ratings go up, and so forth. Decrease recidivism. I mentioned that earlier, that we really need to address the underlying concerns that are causing people to come back to the court over and over again. 87% of the people with mental illness will go back to in the prison pipeline if once they come before the court. But with treatment, appropriate treatment, that number goes down to 30%. So we definitely need to address mental health. I also mentioned addressing addiction and accountability, having an accountability court with a judge that does status hearings, make sure that they pay attention to the people that come before them with the patients needed. And also court pandemic recovery. The pandemic caused a lot of issues. I mean, just having a panel of a jury, if there's an outbreak of COVID, now you're talking about quarantining. So now we are having more innovative ways to have hearings, but still we have a backlog. So making sure that we're able to move our cases, making sure that we are having the appropriate staff. Right now, we are a little bit short-staffed in public defenders. So that needs to be, that we need help with that. So those are the things that are really critical to our courts right now.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. We're getting to the end. We just want to stop for a moment and interject, maybe give our candidates just a time to gather themselves, to get ready to think about their closing speeches and what they're going to say to our public. But I just want to say at this point that the election, the rules have changed very much. And your Gwinnett NAACP will be bringing civic engagement information about the elections, about the candidates. Please tune in on Saturday morning, and we still look forward to bringing you information and candidates who can speak directly to and answer your questions. And we also want to reiterate something that is very, very important. We want to make sure that all of you, even though you know that you have registered to vote, that you check out the website. That's mvp.sos.ga.gov. That's mvp.sos.ga.gov. Um, because of all the changes, because of the new 2 House districts that we have in Gwinnett, we have to make sure that we know who our new elected officials will be. That if we have the same polling voting location, that we know if we have a new district that we belong to, there is a lot of new information. So even though you may have been voting for years and years, the census has made all of this critical. So again, we want to say go to mvp.sos.ga.gov. That's mvp.sos.ga.gov. Check your voting status and make sure that you know where you will be voting. Okay, candidates, we gave you a little breath. We're ready to go on. Let's see if there are any other questions out there for uh, these nonpartisan election that will be happening in Gwinnett on May 24th. Again, the nonpartisan election of our judges on May 24th.
All right. No questions in the chat, so we can continue on with questions we solicited from our members in the unit. In what ways or how can state court judges disrupt the school to prison pipeline? So how can state court judges the school to prison pipeline? And Attorney Miller, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think we've kind of been addressing this throughout this forum today, which is early intervention is key for preventing the prison or the schools to prison pipeline. Making sure that people do not become a statistic, to make sure that there are opportunities for them to avoid having a criminal conviction on their history, getting them the services that they need. It is all key in making sure that an individual does not become a statistic.
Okay, thank you. And Attorney Elaine Nietmann, you can go ahead and answer the same question.
Yes, the intervention programs we have in place are very critical. If they don't have a history, a pretrial diversion is very great because that encourages them to make them know, hey, if you finish this program, you won't be prosecuted for the crime that you're being charged with. So that's very good as well. Also, having a judge that speaks to those that come in front of her that are more on the youthful side. Like if a 17-year-old comes in front of me, I would probably address them different than if an older individual that's a repeat offender comes in front of me. I would address them with a little bit more compassion, letting them know that, you know what, you are not on the right path right now, and you could end up in prison. So a lot of judges, even in juvenile court, will take the time to really speak to that child because they're just maturing. They're still a teenager at age 17. So really talk to that child and make sure that they know that the path they're going on, if they don't follow probation, you will lock them up if that's what you have to do. But if they follow probation, they finish the program, they will be in the right path to getting their life back the way on track, the way they're supposed to be. Because when I've had 17-year-olds in front of a judge, that made all the difference. So definitely doing that will help to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. Thank you.
Judge Dub, same question.
I'm going to kind of echo the diversion programs. But I think it's also just the connecting the resources to avoid the homelessness, the education, the drug and alcohol issues that may be, the anger management, the mental health issues. I think it's about addressing those underlying issues that cause people to get in the system. Because sometimes your thefter comes in front of you because, you know, they're down on their luck and they need some baby food or they need some diapers or something. Not that it's not a crime, but it does require compassion, and it's helpful to get them resources so that they don't have to be in this position, and perhaps this would not happen again. So I think it's about the resources and the diversion program that helps people, give them a second chance at having a clean record and an opportunity to do whatever they want to do in the future.
Thank you for that. And I'm gonna keep you on screen, and this will probably be our last question before I let you all give y'all elevator speeches. So I'm gonna let you start first, Judge Dove.
Okay.
This is from Representative Mitchell. She said, "How will the mental health omnibus bill impact your job as a judge?"
I can honestly tell you, I don't know all the details of the bill. So I don't want to address what it says without knowing exactly what all is in it. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you, but I definitely don't want to make any statements about something I'm not fully informed on.
Okay. Attorney Miller, I'll let you go next.
I'll be real honest with you. I saw Representative Mitchell's comments in there. I wish that she was on so that she could fill us in as to exactly what is in that bill and what is being addressed with it, because I also am not too knowledgeable about this particular bill in the state legislature, or even where it is in the process of the legislative branch.
Hi, Rebecca. I know a little bit about the bill. Are you talking about the bill 1013? Is that specifically the one that you're talking about? If it is, you know what? I'll just be on the safe side and say I don't know much about what she's talking about, so we'll leave it there.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna read one, take one from our
Can't hear you. You're
Mr.
muted.
Paul, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So yeah, since we'll X out that question, and then we'll move on to one from our unit as the last one for this evening. It says judicial proceedings, whether criminal and civil, often involve multiple appearances in court during work hours, which disproportionately prohibit for those working hourly in-person positions. As members of the judiciary, what tools would you use or methods would you implement to ensure those working in and are able to fully exercise their right to defense and redress? Yeah, you can go ahead. I got you on. Yeah, you go ahead. I'm stopping.
Okay. Well, COVID brought about a lot of technology, so now we are able to have hearings online. Of course, you can't have a jury hearing online, but if it's a simple bench trial, we can look into having a bench trial online. But as it stands right now, unfortunately, if it is a jury trial, it would have to be in person. But I would look into just getting more resources for the individual and talking to them to find out what exactly that they need to help them to get to the hearing.
Okay, thank you. And Judge Dove, I'll let you go next.
Okay, so that's one thing I do want to say. A lot of the Gwinnett State Court judges are pretty good about like arraignment hearings. Oftentimes you can email whatever your arraignment announcement is. It's not guilty. It's ready for trial. It's, I'm going to enter a plea on whatever date. There is a lot of flexibility in state court with that. And I think that that's a good thing. It saves people a lot of time. If you have an attorney, a lot of times your attorney can address that on your behalf without having you take off work and that kind of thing. The biggest thing with the court is to make sure that there's communication. So as long as there's contact with, I know what's going on, and this is what my plan is, and this is how I plan to address it. Jury trials cannot be on Zoom. I mean, we just can't do it that way. I don't know how to effectively do it, though there may be a way to do it in the future with technology. Who knows? I think technology is very important in an effort to save people the trip and the travel when not necessary. But a lot of times you can just email your announcements to court or have your attorney make your announcement. It'll save you time and travel time and avoid missing work and that kind of thing. And I think that is often the best avenue for saving those kind of trips. It's the communication that requires that, that will prohibit all the extra back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I think that that's the best thing, emails and technology.
All right, thank you. And Attorney Miller.
Well, I think that I have previously addressed this already with the use of technology and trying to avoid people unnecessarily having to come back to court. Using the technology to proceed with even setting up plea hearings on a Zoom where somebody doesn't have to physically come to court, allowing them to report to probation via Zoom or report via phone versus having to actually go to a probation office to take time out of their day once they are on probation. There's always going to be some elements of people having to come to court because the Constitution requires it. We have a confrontation clause that says that when you are going to a trial, you have to be in the courtroom and you have to confront those witnesses, and those witnesses have to be brought in front of you so that you are allowed to confront them. So there is going to be always some element of people having to take time to appear in court, but we can try to limit it as much as possible with the technology that is available.
Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't allow this person to come on and ask their, or at least not come on, but at least drop their question. So I'm gonna let you stay with you, Attorney Miller. This is from one of our advocates and always working with the Gwinnett NAACP, Atlanta NAACP on Attorney Griggs. Says, how will you ensure indigent defendants are appropriately represented in your courtroom?
Well, again, Mr. Griggs, I've known him for a long time. He's a well-spoken attorney that is out there in the community and does all of the metro area. So in terms of proper indigent defendants, obviously a person needs to be aware of the fact that they are eligible to have an attorney appointed to them if they are indigent and they meet the requirements for getting court-appointed counsel. Unfortunately, that is something that is set by the legislative branch, and it is set at a very, very low number. It is the federal poverty guidelines that determine whether or not somebody can be appointed an attorney. There are other opportunities that I, as a judge, would take advantage of, which is if somebody may not reach that very low threshold for having an attorney appointed to them, but they're very close to that line, you can still go ahead and appoint them attorney and potentially at the conclusion of the case have them repay back some of the attorney's fees. And that could be offset by potentially reducing some of the costs of the fines or things of that nature. There are ways to do it. I've seen it done before. And you just have to look at the case and determine if this is a case in which somebody can be appointed. And then determining what levels of indigency they're really at once they fill out their affidavit. And whether or not they qualify for court-appointed counsel.
All right, thank you. And then I'll let Judge Dove go next.
Okay. And it's kind of a standard, like you do. There is a threshold for income, but I would say to make sure that every person that comes before you is informed that they might be eligible, and you consider the whole household and how many people are living in the household, who are they taking care of and that kind of thing. Just making sure that every person is informed that they might be eligible for it and to consider that. And I would say, again, like Matt said, make sure that they know, okay, so you didn't qualify, but we can provide you an attorney at a reduced rate and see if they want to proceed that way. I think it's just making sure that everybody is informed. And I think that's usually part of the colloquy. And if it's not, you make sure that it is part of the any kind of hearing before the court that makes sure every citizen is informed of their right to be considered?
Thank you.
I'll echo some of what they've said. Definitely make sure that they know that they have the right to an attorney if they cannot afford one, and then they have to, of course, apply for it. And if they meet the requirements, make sure that they are appointed an attorney. It's also usually almost always asked at the end of a hearing if your attorney provided sufficient advocacy on your behalf. So make sure that I take that into consideration for the next time. Make sure that the attorney is doing what they were supposed to, and the person is actually satisfied with the performance and everything that happened with their case with the attorney. That's very critical as well, to make sure that their rights were met. So definitely doing that as a judge.
All right. So that pretty much, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So what we'll do now, we'll let you all give y'all 2 to 3 minute elevator speech of why you should be the candidate to be voted for. We'll start with Judge Dove, then Attorney Miller, and then Attorney Nietmann. Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. Let me, before you start with your elevator speeches, I want to give a point of clarification on the question that was asked, just so that our audience is knowledgeable of what the question pertained to. And it was the bill HB 1013, and it's the summary of the bill. It's a bill to be entitled an act to amend titles 15, 20, 31, 33, 37, 45, and 49 of the OCGA relating to courts, education, health, insurance, mental health, public officers, and employees and social services, respectively, so as to implement the recommendations of the Georgia Behavioral Health Reform and Innovation Commission to provide for related matters, to repeal conflicting laws, and for other purposes. So this legislation is being monitored, and it's the title of it is Mental Health Parity Act, and its sponsors are, there are many of them, but a few are Representative Ralston, Representative Jones, Representative Oliver, Representative Hogan, Representative Sharon Cooper, and Representative James Beverly. We had so many new legislation that has come through. Many of us who have been trying to sift through, this is something that everyone should just have on their radar. Everyone is still sifting, but again, we just wanted to clarify what it was, what it's pertaining to, and hopefully can be addressed by the community at another time. Okay.
I can answer a little bit on that. I believe this bill allows for Medicaid to cover certain expenses, if not all expenses, for mental health treatment, which is a huge benefit. If you've ever had a mental health client, sometimes like somebody that's schizophrenic, they don't trust the system. They don't trust what's provided by the court, the judge, anybody. They want to go get their own psychiatrist, their own doctor, their own everything. This will be a huge benefit for a judge to be able to actually allow for that. Sometimes if you want expert testimony from, let's say, a psychiatrist that's outside of that, you need permission to be able to have the payment done and so forth and so on. I'm not going to go into too much details of that, but just knowing that the resources is now more available for individuals with mental health issues, and if they don't trust what we provide in the courts, that they can get their own, is a huge benefit for our courts. So that's what I was going to say. That.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So we wanted to make sure we had some clarity and that we're addressing what is being brought to us so that we can get a better understanding for our community. Thank you for that, Attorney Nietmann. Back to you, Edward.
All right. So Judge Erica Dove, I'll let you start first with your elevator speech. Why should the people vote for you for state judge here in Gwinnett County?
Okay, again, I am Erica Dove. I am the candidate that you should vote for. I have 20 years of legal experience, varied from on all sides, plaintiff, respondent, prosecutor, defense attorney, and judge. On day one, I'm ready to go. I've had some experience being a judge, and I know how to proceed with being a judge. You want a well-rounded person with the professional ability and experience, the judicial temperament, all of those things. I am the person that fits that bill. I have worked with the indigent defense list for years and years and years. I have been very deeply involved in all the accountability courts that state court has, and is willing to pursue further if necessary. If there's a need out there that we need to address, that we can, I'm sure we can better serve in state court. Everything is subject to improvement. I'm committed to the community. I'm very active in the community in several programs and organizations that serve the community. I understand that this is a community. This is a community. I'm serving the community in this position. I am best suited to serve the community in this capacity. My demeanor, my temperament is appropriate for the position. My intention is to maintain the standard of excellence. And if you want to learn more information about me, please go to my website, which is ericadove.com. That's ERICADOVE. Get involved. Remember that the election is May 24th. Early voting begins on May 2nd. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate this forum. And any questions you may have, reach out. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I have a webpage, and with the email, just reach out if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, or want to make suggestions. I'm open to everything. Thank you.
All right, Attorney Miller, I'll let you go next.
Well, again, I want to thank the Gwinnett NAACP, President Poole, Mr. Paul, for putting on this great forum. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be a member of it, and I appreciate you providing me with the opportunity to speak here this evening. Again, my name is Matt Miller, and I am running for State Court Judge Division 5. I can make a couple promises if I am elected. I will be a judge that will follow the law. I will be a judge that will be that will listen to those that come before them and make the appropriate decisions. My history is that I have been practicing law for almost 2 decades now. I have the experience that's needed because I have tried 2 verdicts, jury trials in every area of the law that a state court judge needs to be knowledgeable with. I have tried personal injury cases. I have tried contract cases. I have tried cases as a prosecutor, and I have tried cases as a defense attorney. I have a wide range of knowledge that is necessary to do the job efficiently and correctly. I feel that makes me the most qualified candidate for the job, and one that you should consider voting for. I would love the chance to earn your vote. If you have any questions, or if you need to learn more information about me, you can go to my website, which is www.electmattmiller.com. Again, it's www.electmattmiller.com. If you have any comments or questions and you want me to address them, I will be happy to do that with you as well. My email address is matt@electmattmiller.com. Again, the election is to be held on May 24th. It is a nonpartisan election. It will appear on all ballots. That is the general election day for all judicial candidates in the state of Georgia. So make sure that you are aware that those elections are going to be at the bottom of the ballot. So vote all the way down the ballot. Make sure you get to the very end of it. And do your research. Determine who is the most qualified candidate, and vote for that person. Vote for who you feel would be best suited for the job. I would love the opportunity to earn your vote. And again, look me up. Thank you for this opportunity again.
Thank you for that, Attorney Miller and Attorney Nietmann.
I want to thank you for welcoming me on the platform today. I'm the NAACP Madame Poole, and Vice President Edward Paul. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm asking for your vote because I have the most passion. I have the most passion for the position. It's not just about qualifications, which I meet. All of us meet the qualifications, but I have the character and I have the passion. I have a child with special needs. I care deeply about mental health and what happens in our environment. And I know that right now we are facing a mental health crisis, and we need somebody in our courts that's making sure that they're addressing that. I care about mass incarceration. I have 2 Black sons, so I know everything that goes on in the news and what's happening. And I care very much about making sure that we are reducing mass incarceration by making sure that the programs that we're implementing in our courts are actually working. Putting people in jail is good if it works, if it's the right consequence that fits the crime. But if it's just an act that we're going through and we're not actually putting the right interventions into place to make sure that we are decreasing recidivism, then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing to make sure the system works. So I care deeply about making sure that the system works for our community. I care about crime reduction. I know with COVID, a lot of crime went up. So I really care about making sure that we're reducing crime in our communities. And the best way you do that is making sure that you are being alert on the bench. You are listening to what's coming before you. You are looking at the statistics, what's happening, and making sure that we are addressing that in every possible way. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. I want you to remember to vote for me. Oh, and also, I'm an immigrant, so I care about immigrant concerns. I want to make sure that we're having interpreters that can understand the different people that come before the court. I want to make sure that our mental health programs are not just in English, but they're in different languages to address our immigrant population. We have a very diverse community here in Gwinnett County, so we need to address all of us. So I want to make sure that I do these things for you because I care about the community. This is my home. This is where I'm raising my 4 children. And I want to get your vote on May 24th. Early voting starts May 2nd. So make sure that you get out there and you vote. You can find out more about me on my website. I'll post it here in the chat room. And I just want to thank you again for your time.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And look like we got 3 great candidates. Probably going to be a tough race to call. I'm sure this probably going to be a runoff with how the rules are in Georgia. So keep that in mind, people. Your candidate, no matter what election you're voting for, does have to get 50% of the vote plus 1 in order to win the election. Otherwise, it goes into a runoff. Again, thank you all. You all were great guests. Hopefully, we're able to help people make their decision a little bit easier today and who they want to support for this upcoming judicial election. Thank you all for also pointing out that, hey, judicial elections are only in May. You can't vote for these people again come November. You got one shot at it. And this is why, you need to vote in the primary election. And for those who live in districts with school boards, because of the changes and the most recent bill passed a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago now, probably, your school board elections this year in District 2 and 4 are also the only time you'll get to vote for candidates. So thank you all again for coming on, Attorney Judge Dove, Attorney Miller, and Attorney Nietmann. Thank you all. Y'all been great guests.
And I want to just say thank you. Again, I just want to reiterate what Mr. Paul said. You've been aggressive candidates, asking, showing. And I think the word that established the barometer today was compassionate, because we need to treat our citizens as though they are human beings. And a lot of times, because of the numbers, because of the new Jim Crow, there's many things that we could have said, but that word compassionate can turn the system around for all of us. I'm going to say it again because we want to make sure it has not, there's never enough for it to be said. On May 24th, you will be electing one of these people for State Court District 5. That's State Court District 5 on May 24th. Please, if you want to vote for everyone, those who will be elected that day and those who are in the primary, and you will have to come out again and vote in November, please choose a party ballot. Choose a a Democratic or Republican ballot, go all the way down at the bottom, and there you will see the nonpartisan candidates. Again, go all to select a party ballot, go all the way to down the ballot, and on the end you will see our nonpartisan judicial and school board candidates. Beloved community, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for caring. The beloved community, we need your help. Come join us. Go to our website. Donate. Better yet, join us and come out here and volunteer and help. If not anything else, oh, please let me thank Edward Paul, our PAC chair, for his leadership in bringing these events, the political education information and forums to you. Our unit secretary, Adrian Johnson, who does so well at organizing, and Nye Henry, who works with Edward in bringing information to you. As well as our background team, our legal redress team, our PAC team. We could not do it if it wasn't for everyone. And most of all, we do it for our community. If not, at this time, we can close, Edward.
Oh,
Anything
absolutely. Last word again, we'll be here every Sunday except for Easter Sunday at same time, 5 o'clock, to do some form of Meet the Candidate Forum. Please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at Gwinnett _ NAACP. That's Gwinnett _ NAACP. Follow us, subscribe to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. Again, we'll be having a Meet the Candidate Forum every Sunday, all the way up until at least the very minimum early voting, which starts May 2nd. But we will have forums throughout every Sunday this month, as well as at our general meeting, which is held on that second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. But every Sunday at 5 o'clock, you all can come back here. I can't let the cat out of the bag. We'll have another civic education forum soon. We don't have a date yet. That's to be determined. It will be on a Saturday at 10 a.m. I can say that. Look for flyers to come out on our social media pages with that. I will say that particular civic education training will be on Senate Bill 202 and how it will impact your ability to vote either by absentee ballot or in person. We'll do a deep dive into how you would have to vote come this election, so that you can be prepared not only for the primary, but get prepared for the general election in November.
All right. With that, we're going to say thank you again. We're going to close in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you have made. Lord God, we will rejoice. We will be glad in it. Right now, please protect our community. Keep us safe. Keep us from all hurt and harm. Lord God, let the NAACP, let our community, our allies, Lord God, let us walk together and bring a cohesive message for the uplifting and the building of this community. Everything that we do it is for your glory, your praise. We hope that this program has helped and informed and enlightened our community, and that it was a blessing. I pray to my God, Jesus. Please pray to your God. We pray. Amen. Amen. And thank you. And thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you all. Look, y'all have a good rest of your evening. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Get ready. And like I said, be back here next Sunday at 5 o'clock, same time. And we'll be doing it again. We'll have a new list of candidates for you. Just like I said, follow us on social media. And y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. What's left of it, at least.